Welcome back to part 2 of the snow globe.
He was a tall man of middle age, with greying hair peeking out from under a fur-lined leather cap and a dark complexion. He seemed to Josh's young eyes slightly scary. Then he suddenly smiled, and his face took on an altogether more kindly look. "This is my stall, young fellow," he said. "I noticed you looking at all the snow globes. Which one do you like?" Josh answered shyly, "This one," and pointed to the one with the sleigh. "Yes, that's my favourite too," said the man gravely. "It's a very special one, a magical one." Josh regarded him doubtfully, but the man seemed to be serious. "Would you like it?" the man went on. "I don't have any money," replied Josh. "I'd have to ask my mummy." "Of course," said the man. "Tell you what, why don't you take it and show her? She's only over there, isn't she? And if she likes it and says yes, you can come back with the money." Josh looked at him uncertainly, but the man gave him a reassuring pat on the shoulder. Josh picked up the precious globe and ran towards Jenny, his feet sliding on the snow, which was coming down more thickly now. "Mummy, Mummy, look at this!" Josh cried, as he waved the snow globe under Jenny's startled gaze. "Careful, Josh, you'll spill my drink," Jenny said. "What's that you've got?" "It's a snow globe. Look at the man in the sleigh and see what happens if I shake it." Josh suited the action to the word and shook the globe vigorously and held it up for her to see. "Yes, that's lovely, Josh," his mother agreed, and Carol joined in enthusiastically. "But where did you get it? You didn't steal it, did you?" Jenny asked in some anxiety. "No, of course not," Josh replied indignantly. "The man over there said I could bring it to show you, and if you liked it, we could go back and pay him." "How much is it?" Jenny mused, turning the globe over. She found a sticker on the underneath. "Josh," she exclaimed, "it's nearly £20. That's an awful lot." "The man said it was a special one," Josh started defiantly. "I'm sure it is, sweetheart, but it's too much money. You'd better give it him back." Jenny handed the globe back to Josh. Seeing his look, Jenny added, "Perhaps you can find another nice one which isn't so expensive." Josh looked down at the ground. Carol interjected, noticing Josh's obvious disappointment. "Let me buy..." But Jenny cut across her. "No, thank you, Carol. Very kind, but no." Before any more could be said, Jenny's mobile started to ring. Quickly pulling it out of her handbag, she glanced at the screen. Her eyes widened in alarm. She mouthed at Carol, "It's the hospital," before answering it. She listened for a few moments before saying in a monotone, "Yes, I'll come straight away." She turned to the others. "We've got to go to the hospital now," she said. "Oh, Jenny, whatever is it?" Carol sounded concerned. "They didn't say. They just said I should come straight away," Jenny said in a flat tone. Then she added, "Oh, damn. We'd have to walk home to get the car first." "Don't worry, I can drive you. My car's only just behind the church," Carol offered quickly. "Oh, no, we could always get a taxi," Jenny started to say, but Carol cut her off. "Nonsense. I wouldn't hear of it." Jenny muttered the thanks gratefully, then remembering Josh, said, "Come on quickly, Josh. You better give that globe back now." Josh turned away sadly and trotted back to the stall. But it was in darkness and the man was nowhere to be seen. "Mummy," he shouted, "he's not here." "Oh, well, never mind now," cried Jenny. "We've got to go. We'll have to come another time to give it back." They hurried off to where Carol's car was parked, Josh clutching the precious snow globe to his chest. The snow was falling even more heavily now, and the roads were covered in a thick layer of white. The car slithered across the nearly deserted streets and finally pulled up at the main entrance to the hospital. "Don't worry about me," Carol urged as Jenny and Josh scrambled out of the car. "I'll find somewhere else to park and catch up with you later." Jenny ran through the hospital to the room where Matt lay, dragging Josh after her. She felt that she should have perhaps left Josh with someone, but there'd been no time to arrange anything. The hospital said she needed to come urgently. Pity her parents lived so far away. What if this is the end? Jane tried to put the thought away, but of course it was clearly why she'd been summoned. "I just pray we're not too late," she thought, although a part of her felt that Matt had gone from them, the day of his accident. A solemn-faced doctor met them at the end of the corridor. "Mrs. Lomax," he began, "I think you should prepare yourself." Jenny nodded dumbly. Something all the reserve, she managed to say, "Would it be better for our son, to wait outside?" The doctor looked at them both gravely. "No," he said at last. "Both of you go in." He turned the handle of the door and pushed it open. Jenny moved forward, clutching Josh's hands so tightly that her nails dug into his skin, but he didn't flinch. The room was dimly lit. Machines hummed and whirred, screens glowing and lights flashing. Jenny found herself looking at the floor, hardly daring to raise her eyes to look at the figure in the bed. She suddenly felt Josh tearing himself free from her grip and reaching forward, shouting, "Daddy, my daddy!" She felt alarmed. This was all too much for a young boy like Josh. She should never have brought him. He shouldn't be face to face with death at his age. Then she heard a voice, quiet but firm. "Hello, Josh." Jenny raised her head, scarcely able to believe her eyes. It was Matt. He was propped up in the bed, pale-faced, but looking at her steadily with his steely blue eyes. Josh was half on the bed with his face buried in Matt's chest. Matt held out a hand and Jenny grasped it. She felt once again the rivulets of tears flowing down her cheeks, but this time they were tears of joy. "I don't understand," she found herself repeating over and over again. Just then the door opened and the doctor appeared, this time with a broad beam on his usually serious face. "Nor do we, Mrs. Lomax," he said. "It is a truly remarkable recovery. We can't explain it, but the tests indicate the brain has recovered all its functions. I think we can be quietly confident that your husband will make a complete recovery." "Thank you, Doctor." Jenny looked up from the bed on which she and Josh were now perched. "Don't thank me," said the doctor with a rueful smile. "I don't think we had anything to do with it." Later, Jenny and Matt held hands while Josh lay fast asleep on the bed, snuggled against Matt. "Can you remember anything, darling?" Jenny asked. Matt closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them and looked at Jenny. "It's really all very odd," he said. "I can remember getting in the car and the truck heading towards me, then it goes black. Then I had this dream where I was sort of imprisoned in something." "What sort of something?" Jenny asked. "Well, I don't know, sort of like a fish tank. I could see some distance, but I kept coming against a barrier which I couldn't get through." "Then what?" Jenny prompted him as Matt stopped. "Then I turned around and there was a big fir tree covered in snow, and there was suddenly thick snow on the ground. As I walked towards the tree, I saw a big sleigh with a single horse pulling it." "Go on." Jenny was intrigued. "Then a man came along, a tallish man with a big fur-lined cap, and he said, 'Climb aboard the sleigh,' and I found myself getting in and picking up the reins." "You've never done anything like that in real life," Jenny laughed. "You don't even ride a horse." "No, I know," Matt grinned. But then the man said something to the horse, and the sleigh started moving. Then he shouted, 'Make it go faster.' I leaned forward and tugged on the reins. We started going faster and faster, and I was thinking, I don't know how to stop. We're going to crash into the boundary. Then the snow started to come down really heavily, and was whirling round and round, and there was sort of a sound like breaking glass, and the sleigh seemed to soar into the air. Then I woke up and found I was in this bed." "How strange." Jenny looked thoughtful. "Can you remember what colour the sleigh was? And the horse?" Matt answered without hesitation. "Yes, it was all very vivid. The sleigh was red, and it was a grey horse." Jenny reached across the bed to where Josh was slumbering and pulled something from between his hands. It was the snow globe. Slowly she held it up and showed it to her husband. "Like this." Matt looked at the globe for a moment, then turned to Jenny and nodded. "Yes," he whispered. "But what does it mean?" Jenny just shook her head, and her grip on his hand tightened. The next day was Christmas Eve, and Jenny and Josh retraced the steps to the market square. "Do you really mean I can keep it?" he kept asking his mother, waving the snow globe in front of her. Jenny laughed as she reassured him for the 100th time that he could keep it. "But we must go and pay for it," she had added sternly. "Of course," Josh had agreed. They walked up and down the lines of stalls in the marketplace, but they could not find the man or the stall. "I'm sure it was about here," Jenny mused as they came around a corner, "because Carol got some drinks at that stall over there." "Let's ask someone, Mummy," Josh suggested. Jenny felt a curious reluctance to do this, but finally, encouraged by Josh's persistence, she approached a woman standing behind the counter at the stall at the end of the row. This one was selling what to Jenny's eyes were rather tacky Christmas tree baubles. "Excuse me," she started. "Do you know where the man with the stall selling snow globes is? I thought it was here, but I can't seem to find it. Or him." The woman looked at her curiously. "Why do you want to know, love?" "Well, it's just that we need to pay for the snow globe that my son got yesterday." Aware that the woman was perhaps a bit suspicious, Jenny quickly added, "He said we'd come back later and pay for it, but now we can't find him." The woman looked at her for a moment before replying. "Would your son's name be Josh by any chance?" she asked. Startled, Jenny replied, Yes, it is. How do you know?" The woman didn't say anything, but delved down under the counter and produced an envelope. In big letters written on the front was the name Josh, whilst on the back, in smaller but neat handwriting, was the message, "Give this to the boy with the snow globe. Thank you." The woman went on. "I don't know what it's all about, but I found that envelope this morning when I opened the stall up. I almost threw it away, but then I thought that maybe it's important." "Yes," Jenny replied. "Yes, it may be. Thank you." And clutching the envelope in her hand, she turned to Josh. "Come on, let's go and have a hot chocolate and see what this says." Seated in the cafe with 2 cups of hot chocolate, surmounted by a flurry of whipped cream, Jenny solemnly handed the envelope to Josh. "Go on," she said. "You'd better open it. It's addressed to you." Josh, putting down his mug, wiped away a line of whipped cream which was decorating his upper lip and picked up the envelope. He turned it over in his hands. "Go on," urged Jenny. "I can't stand the suspense any longer." Josh opened the envelope and started reading. "Dear Josh, I knew you would be back soon, but I have to go. My work is done. Please keep the snow globe and have the happiest of happy Christmases. P.S. I told you the snow globe was magical."
Thank you so much, Jeff, for the story. I thoroughly enjoyed it, as I'm sure all the listeners will have done. So it just remains to say thank you all for listening to that, and to wish you all season's greetings, and it's goodbye from all of us
Merry
in
Christmas.
Friday
Merry
Writers.
Christmas.
Happy Christmas! Woo!
Bye.
Bye! Bye!
Bye.